What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day. Friday, April 5th. Alright guys, Palantir stock today down 22 cents a share when it was all said and done, minus 0.97%. Of course, this morning the stock popped on the news of the Oracle partnership. However, it faded throughout the day, especially in the last third of the day. You know, it kind of fell victim to that macro volatility. We got some Fed comments today questioning rate cuts this year at all, Kashkari in particular. On top of that, you know, don't forget, Palantir is what I would kind of call a macro stock. It's going to be impacted by overall market volatility a lot of the time. And tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens, we get the jobs report. So keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at this name here today and try to pull out all the bias that the market gave us here today heading into tomorrow, Friday, using the psychological levels, the trading levels, the volume profile, the options directional bias, and finally, the expected move. Let's take a look. Starting with the volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. We'll just run through it quick. Hey, listen, by the way, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Today is the first day of the newly implemented daily upload schedule. So Palantir made the cut. This is one of my favorite companies of all time. This is a daily upload now. Well, every day that the market's open at least. And the Palantir video will hit each day at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time sharp. Appreciate you subscribing to the channel. My goal here is to hit 6,000 in the next couple of days. Now let's take a look. Now, a few moves I want to take a look at here. I do want to take a quick look at that pre-market move and then the fade off the open and then this late day move as well. So let's take a look. Understand, we're not going to see a ton of volume in the pre-market. However, we did see some out of context consecutive green bars that, you know, we got mixed up with a little bit of lower volume red bars, but I would call that just a very slight out of context bullish bias in the pre-market. However, this open, while we did see that very contextual fade off the open, we got a lot of volume compared to yesterday right off the open and a lot of selling pressure. So, I mean, there's really no way around it, guys. There was a little bit of bearish bias there off the open. It's not like we held, 3.5 million shares for 20 minutes off the open. And we got the contextual fade, but it was a lot more volume than is typical, given the news that's expected. But it was a lot of consecutive red bars. So there was some bearish bias to support that little bit of a fade that we got off the open. We just have to stay unbiased and point that out. Late in the day as well, on this fade that we got into the close, it was a bit more choppy, but we got, it was choppy, right? We didn't see very many consecutive red bars, but I would say, again, a very slight, because we weren't seeing consecutive bars, amount of bearish bias. It was just a little more volume than what is contextual for that time of day, but it was choppy, so we have to consider that. It's not like we were seeing 5 consecutive bars with 1.5 million shares, right? Now, let's move on here to look at the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels that I and a lot of traders are going to be paying attention to here tomorrow. So if you guys remember in yesterday's video here on the 30-minute chart, we had, kind of held that break and hold of the 50 period, that white line. Today, we made a big upside test of the 200 period in pre-market. I'm always a little bit skeptical of pre-market moves in either direction. We faded down, right? Made a retest and rejected off very clean off that 200 period. And then when we got caught up in that macro movement, we were actually kind of holding above 23, which is a technical and psychological level. That pushed us down through not only that, but also the 50 period. Okay, so here in the near future, listen, bears, well, first of all, we currently find ourselves about 2.25% away from that bottom moving average, the 50. If you're a bear, 2 things. Any retest of the 50 period, we haven't seen confirmation yet. This is a first day break. You guys would want to see a hard rejection of the 50 on big volume, but also you want to see that 50 period start to trend downside at a more aggressive pace. Currently, it's just kind of hovering sideways, whereas bulls, a couple of things here. You don't necessarily want to see that 50 period come downside too aggressively, but there's something to consider there. It's currently very close to the $23 level, which is already a psychological and technical level. If you have, with each additional level that you add there, like in this case, kind of a 50 period within about 15 cents, it can beef up the strength of that level. So it depends on your perspective of how strong Palantir is. If you think it's a little bit weaker, you actually might want to see that 50 period come downside to make the break of the 50 and the break of 23 kind of two separate events. If you think Palantir is a strong stock, well, then the higher the 50 period is, the better, because then if it's strong, it shouldn't have a problem getting up, through that kind of double level anyway. Now, let's move on here and take a look at the 4-hour chart. You can see the 4-hour was very in play today, and we rejected hard. We made a test of that 50 period here today. We actually got above it for a period of time, but rejected. And again, once we became victim to that macro volatility, a lot of volatility in the market in the last third of the day, we just fell lower. So we now currently find ourselves, a good amount, about 6.5% away from that 50 period here on the 4-hour chart. That's really my primary concern on the 4-hour, is just seeing a reclaim of the 50 period to begin with, understanding that it's a 6.5% move away, and also understanding that it's a slower chart. So these averages, they take a little longer to change direction. They take a little bit longer to move. But if you're a bear, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, I want to see that 50 period get downside as quick as possible so we can beef up this $23 area as a resistance and just keep the stock beneath there to buy time while this thing works its way down. If you're a bull, ideally a reclaim of 23 before this area gets too far downside to beef up that level. A reclaim of that prior to that would likely be very helpful, okay, in getting above 23 to begin with without that added strength. Now, with all that said, let's take a look at the biggest story here of all, which is going to be the daily chart. Okay, couple of things here. The daily is let me zoom in even a little bit more here so we can really see what's going on. We've been talking about this a lot. The daily chart on Palantir is currently a really big deal. We were testing not only 23 to try to get back upside, but also the 50-day moving average, guys. Do you realize how many eyeballs are looking at this exact same thing right now? Making decisions, algorithms being programmed to make decisions off of what's going on this chart exactly with that specific indicator and level. And today, we popped up above both of those. However, unfortunately, unable to hold. But listen, it wasn't when it was all said and done, we're down less than 1%. That's the reality of today. It just feels like we lost a lot because we were up so much pre-market off that Oracle news. But listen, we've now proved to the market that we can get above not only the 50-day and the $23 area. We just need to hold it now. Bears, that 50-day coming into 23 is your best friend. You want that general region to hold as a hard resistance. Bulls, getting up through there is obviously not enough. We need to see confirmation and a hold. So ideally, high volume break of both the 50-day and 23, retest of whichever one is higher at the time, and a high volume hold. Okay, that is the ideal scenario here on Palantir, day by day, looking ahead to tomorrow. Now, we have, if we look, an expiration tomorrow. The expected move by close tomorrow, Friday, is plus or minus 64 cents. This helps us out with the volatility expectation from the market. So the market expects Palantir by close tomorrow to be one of two places, either above 23 bucks a share or below 22 bucks a share. Guys, that's nearly a 3%. That's like a 2.9% volatility expectation that the option traders are pricing in just for tomorrow at the close. That's not a small volatility expectation. So just understand that. And I think with that understanding, when you also do the volume profile analysis, the psychological level analysis, and then the options bias, which we'll do in a split second here, that allows you to position yourself much more effectively, especially if you're trading options. Speaking of that, let's take a look at the bias here today. Over 400,000 total contracts traded here today on Palantir. Man, look at this. Look at this. 307,000 of those were calls. 108,000 of those were puts. In typical Palantir fashion, we've been seeing this a lot. A heavy overall call side bias. And, by the way, those short-term speculators, 89,000 calls, 35,000 puts. Heavy call side bias in the short-term speculator category as well as the overall. Listen, guys, I appreciate you watching. If you're getting value out of these videos, please subscribe to the channel. Again, Palantir hits every single trading day at 5:30 p.m. sharp Eastern time. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.